second Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends toy line I'm going to be talking about is Wooden Railway, a Thomas and Friends merchandise range that consisted of wooden model trains, tracks and accessories. It ran from 1993 to 2017, and in that time it became one of the most bought Thomas toys ever made. Because Wooden Railway was another one of the big selling Thomas the Tank Engine merchandises since its early days, I thought it was worth talking about. The Wooden Railway merchandise line for Thomas and Friends was created by Roy Wilson of Learning Curve in 1992, with the line becoming publicly available in 1993. These original models were primarily constructed with painted wood, along with metal used in the coupling magnets and axles and plastic for the wheels and faces. These models were relatively simple, with simple wood stubs for the funnel and dome, while details such as windows, whistles and buffer beams were augmented. And as you know, I still have some of the early 90s Wooden Railway Thomas the Tank Engine models in my collection. In the late 90s and early 2000s, the line was overhauled and the majority of the models underwent major redesigns. The wooden funnel and smoke box were replaced with separate plastic smoke box with more realistic funnels. The tender engines received an additional upgrade, with a moulded plastic coal pile in their tenders. These improved designs were manufactured until 2002, when they were replaced with a third generation of design, which included new and more detailed faces. 2011 saw another slight redesign in the form of new faces to collide with the recent CGI series switchover. In late 2011, Tomy bought out Learning Curve and as such acquired the rights to the Wooden Railway line. They sold the products previously planned to be released by Learning Curve in early 2012. The products due to be released in late 2012, coinciding with the special Blue Mountain Mystery, were cancelled because Learning Curve had only developed the computer-generated prototypes before they were acquired by Tomy. Most of these cancelled releases with the new CGI-style models were reconstructed by Tomy and sold under their name, and a few others were later released by Fisher-Price. Tomy held the license until the end of 2012. In 2013, Fisher-Price began manufacturing and distributing the Wooden Railway merchandise line, and this change introduced another redesign. This upgrade was used for all of the Wooden Railway merchandise line until late 2017. All the engines, rolling stock and vehicles were reconstructed with more paint detailing, current CGI-style faces as well as curved edges to prevent edge wear and wood break. All models with multiple bogies had their chassis made with plastic, and other slight plastic incorporations were utilised to cut down production costs. The Wooden Railway merchandise became one of Thomas & Friends' longest running and most popular merchandise lines. But sadly, the wave lines for Wooden Railway ended in 2017, and then we got this piece of shit to replace it instead. Okay, they were then updated a year later after the sales didn't go very well, but they're still a piece of shit compared to Wooden Railway. Wooden Railway is another one of the toy lines of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends that I bought a lot when I was a kid. I have most of the characters from the original run, and some of the ones that I don't have I kind of regret not getting. During the 90s, Wooden Railway also gave us some Railway series characters that were either sold as Ertls or not sold as Ertls. Like Ertl, they sold most of the characters from the TV series and a majority of characters from the Railway series. They even released some that hadn't been released by Ertl. Also like Ertl, they sold characters based on Thomas and the Magic Railroad characters, including Lady, Splatter and Dodge and Diesel 10 himself. They even released a Muffle Mountain playset based on the film. And also like Ertl, certain Wooden Railway products were only released in the USA. Like this sad story of Henry pack, which is also known as Come Out Henry, some Wooden Railway models with various books and VHS tapes and other sets that were based on various episodes, like this Thomas Comes to Breakfast limited edition set, and this A Better View for Gordon limited edition set, which look pretty awesome by the way. They also got this Jack Frost Percy, which looks really cool. And I find it a shame that I never got to see it in stores. They'd also brought out some limited edition sets in the UK, like these two Flying Scotsman trains, which I got both of, the 70th anniversary 2 Thomas sets with a golden Thomas, which isn't exactly that gold, and a Thomas that looks like the old model that Christopher Lloyd had when he was a kid, and this really awesome Black James, also known as Origin James, which I have. Wooden Railway also ranged out to different types of products with their line, with miniature characters, battery-powered characters, and many others. Another huge highlight of Wooden Railway was a lot of their playsets they released, like say Tim of Sheds, the Docks, the Big Station, the list goes on. They even did various location sets like the Muffle Mountain one I mentioned, and many accessories like characters that were either made out of wooden blocks or bits of plastic that almost looked like Lego minifigures, but aren't. Talking trains, which look really cool, especially the Diesel 10 one. They even did a play table for young children to make a little model set of their own. They even did some really nice Christmas packs too, like this Rosie with a musical caboose, also known as a brake van in the UK. And like Ertl, they did a limited edition Golden Thomas, which a lot of people really want, but it's quite hard to find nowadays. And one thing I find really amazing about Wooden Railway is that when they first did Bertram from Series 5, they had him as a tank engine, which I found out may have been what he was originally supposed to look like, since it was said he was originally intended to be a tank engine. But then when he was re-released in 2016, they did him with Duke's design as we see in the TV series. So it's very interesting to see that his first Wooden Railway model may have been what he was intended to look like in the TV series. And as I mentioned, it was a damn shame that it was discontinued in 2017 just to make room for this piece of shit known as Wood. The first designs for Wood were just the engines, with some painted areas showing some areas of wood, which a lot of people really didn't like, so they updated it with having the engines painted all together. But they still look very inferior compared to original Wooden Railway, like having the lack of domes and not much detail compared to the Wooden Railways. But I must admit, the new Wood Rosie looks pretty good in my opinion, although not as good as the custom red Rosie I did, but I digress. To me, Wooden Railway was one of the greatest Thomas the Tank Engine merchandises I ever got as a kid. I enjoyed getting a lot of the trains, the rolling stock, and various other characters that we never got to see in the TV series because they were never adapted for the TV series from the Railway series. And much like the Ertl models, some of these models for Wooden Railway go on eBay and Amazon for ridiculously high prices. And there are many users like myself who still use them for fan videos on the internet. So in my opinion, Wooden Railway is just as popular as Ertl was back in when it was first made, and it's one of those Thomas and Friends toy lines that's fondly remembered by the fans to this very day. Even though the new Wood lines are trying to update themselves and make them better from their prototypes, people are still going to look back and remember the Wooden Railways figures because they're so much better in quality. And I don't care how many times they're going to keep releasing Wood series engines, they'll never come close to being as good as the original Wooden Railway, some of the greatest Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends toys ever made.